doing two financial headlines for you this beautiful morning in Texarkana, Texas, where I've been told. So this is what I've been told, Adam. Outside here in Mom's house, longtime viewers and listeners know we've been working on the house. In fact, you might be able to hear them out there now. But, and by the way, I can't stop them no matter how much noise there is, because if I stop, I have no idea when we're getting them back, right? We have no idea. So we're just going to deal with it. But they have told me they're putting this, there's these beams that go across the ceiling, these wood beams, and they put in these brand new, beautiful looking beams. They put the stain on them yesterday. Today, they're putting a coating on them. I have been told that I should probably get the hell out of here.
You're high as a kite right now. That's what you're saying.
Not yet, but I've been told that I'm about to be high as a kite. So, yeah, he's like any minute. And the guy's got like 3 fans out there. He's going to open up all the doors. He's like, it is going to stink like nobody's business. So fantastic.
Yeah. He's all masked up and here you are breathing in all the fumes.
I'm like, speaking of stink like nobody's business, I'm with Adam Carroll today. Yeah, where is it? Where? Nope. Yeah. Well, that's good enough. Do we have which one's the rim shot? There it is. Yeah, good stuff. So C is with us today. Kevin's with us. We don't have anybody really chatty today. In fact, but as we get ready to go live, why don't I'm going to tweet this out that we're going live.
I saw one tweet this morning. I retweeted it.
Very exciting.
Joe, do you know what an online retweet looks like? Did I teach you this last time?
I didn't even know what online looks like. What is online?
So the retweet when we are together in this format looks like this. I'm going to give you a retweet. So if I agree with something you say, this is a retweet.
Really?
Yeah.
So if we're just chatting?
Yeah, we're like,
no way.
I get that. That's a retweet. Yeah, my daughter's not.
Zoom call retweet?
What's that?
This is like a Zoom call retweet?
Zoom call retweet.
Oh, that's horrible. Let's not do that.
Yeah, no, I'm starting it. My daughter at the dinner table the other night, I said something. She's like, mm-hmm. And I go, what is that? She goes, I'm retweeting you. I said, I'm totally using that. We're going to use that on the next Zoom call.
But I have a feeling she was using it in a different way than you are.
Probably. It was sarcastic or something. Yeah. To the face, like, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Retweet.
All right, let me see if I can figure out where the hell we are. There we are. Oh, look at us. We are live here. Let me turn down the volume there and point to this. By the way, for those of you here live with us right now, this is the exciting stuff you get to see. We come here early. You're welcome.
How the sausage is made.
That's right. We're live.
Good morning, Kimberly.
I decided I need to put you on this.
You picked a riveting topic this morning, Joe.
Is that what they said? Yeah. Or is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Who doesn't love about the Fed?
Well, the Fed is the most riveting topic.
It is.
That is just actually very seriously. And I wrote you this last night when I first created this show. I was reading something about the Federal Reserve and I'm like, you know how many people just see this headline and go, this means nothing to me.
Right.
This means absolutely nothing. And don't get me wrong. I'd say about 70% of it does mean nothing to you, but following the Fed is much easier than you think. It's like riding a bike, you know. Yep. It's not that hard. Morning, Mike. Peter's here. Kimberly's here. Kevin's here. I've got my Boulevard Brewing Company. Yes, it is coffee though.
I didn't know they sold coffee.
And they don't. They just sell beautiful coffee mugs. Well, who said this is coffee? I'm about to get high from all these fumes. I might as well be drunk too. Come on. It makes Bobby feel fed up. That was our joke last week.
I love these dad jokes.
That's not.
We'll give you a rim shot too, Peter.
If by dad joke you mean brilliant joke,
it is brilliant. It's very funny. It's very funny.
With the eye roll, you learn from your daughter very well.
She knows all my jokes now. That's the problem.
Just a ninja. All right, we ready to do this, guys? Let's make a couple podcasts. Adam, you ready?
Let's do it.
Here we go. This is for tomorrow, Thursday, December 17th. On today's show, the Federal Reserve met yesterday, and as we recorded this the day before, some journalists thought the market might not like the Fed's dovish tone. They said, first of all, what the heck is a dovish tone? Is that like a ringtone? I don't know. So for all things Federal Reserve, we're going to hang out today with Mr. Vitamin AC himself. Adam Carroll from the Build a Bigger Life podcast is on today's Money with Friends. Welcome back to the Money with Friends podcast, coming to you live from my mom's half-finished basement in Texarkana, Texas, where apparently we're fumigating today. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy.
My name is Adam Carroll, coming to you from the rockin' metropolis of Des Moines, Iowa, home of the greatest kolaches you've ever had in your life.
The greatest kolaches?
Kolaches. You ever had a kolach?
I don't even know what a kolach is.
It's a pastry. It's a pastry, and they're delicious, Joe. Look it up. Give it the program. Are you not from the Midwest originally? Come on.
Adam's defense. I know what it's like a kolache.
Yeah, kolache.
Oh,
yeah.
A kolach is like a single one. A kolach is a single. A kolache is when you get like a herd of them together.
A bunch of them. Yeah, a box of kolaches.
Gotcha. Yeah. This is the show where we not just talk about kolaches and kolaches. We also cover financial headlines. And not only do we read them over like some podcasts, we dive into how they affect your wallet and what you can do to invest, save, and pay down debt more effectively. That's not enough. Adam and I are going to have a big idea at the end of today's show you can take with you to be better with money, all in usually less than 20 minutes. Adam Carroll, Vitamin AC is back. How are you, man?
I'm great, Joe. I'm great. I am figuring out how to create variety and novelty in my life, despite everything being exactly the same. It's so good. This morning, I scrubbed my right armpit before my left, which is unusual. So we're just getting very creative.
That builds it exciting a bit. You probably tell your wife, you're like, you want to watch this because nobody knows which arm I'm starting with.
That's
nobody
right.
knows.
Today, I'm going to brush my teeth with my left hand. It'll be exciting.
Watch this. It's going to be awesome. I have to tell you, as much as I love your podcast, I was a little upset listening to the latest episode because you told your guests that it was your favorite interview ever because it had been your first interview. And you told me that when I was on your show. I'm like, Adam Carroll's cheating on me. What the hell's going on here?
The bar keeps getting raised. You know, like you raised the bar. You were my favorite. Then Scott raised the bar. Yeah, I do need to have you back on the show. We got to talk about all your life journey, your mission here over the last several months.
Scott I will wreck your show. I've told you that 100 times.
I know. I'm down for it.
But Scott that was a very interesting discussion about creativity and connection and in this time of COVID.
Scott is a wildly creative guy. We're talking about Scott Ginsberg, who holds the Guinness Book of World Records for wearing a name tag in the most consecutive days. So he has a name tag that says, "Hello, my name is Scott," that he's worn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I thought you were going to tell me he's worked at Best Buy.
Oh no,
for longer than any other employee.
Oh no, he has worn a name tag for 21 years consistently and has one tattooed on his chest. So that is Scott's claim to fame. But his real claim to fame is he's so creative. When he came to my house years ago, he was on a speaking gig and I invited him to my place. He picked up my guitar and wrote a song in the moment about why my dad's a terrible daddy and sang it to my kids. And it was all about how I was a terrible daddy. It was quite fun.
And that's all you need to know. That's all anybody needs to know about the Build a Bigger Life podcast.
That's what we do on my show. We have fun.
That's the quality of guests. Well, today we're talking about the Fed. I'm glad, Adam, you're going to help us walk through what the heck do these Fed meetings mean. Let's see which one of our friends is going to help us kick off today's discussion.
Love it.
All right. Today's piece came to us from CNBC. It's written by Patty Dom. Patty wrote, "The Fed could disappoint markets Wednesday, even if it keeps a super dovish tone." We are, by the way, recording this before we get the news about what the Fed expected. But you know what? It's going to be cool because as you're listening to this, you're going to then turn to your favorite online publication and you're going to see what happened. And we're going to give you a few insights into why the Fed is important. Actually, I'm not. The reason I invited Adam on is because he's going to, Adam, why is this important? Because I can't figure it out.
It's so important. There are clues. You know, Joe, these clues that get dropped, like dovish and hawkish and things that the Fed is talking about, which we don't, like you mentioned earlier, we don't really pay attention. There's a lot of people who read that and probably go, whatever, don't know what it means. I will guarantee you this, having spent 3 years as a mortgage wholesaler, calling on brokers, and then another 3 years as a broker, the mortgage folks are watching intently on what happens on these FOMC meetings, because that is going to dictate when they lock in their mortgage rate. Many times, whatever the Fed meetings, what is said at the Fed meetings will directly impact what happens to mortgage rates that day or in the subsequent couple of days. So if you were in the middle of a refinance and the Federal Reserve comes out and says they are dovish, what that generally will mean is rates might trend lower, because if they are dovish, Joe, they're probably concerned about high unemployment, weak growth overall, and deflation, not inflation. So let me pause there to see if that.
No, I get it's funny because I actually had to look that up. I've heard that term forever, the Fed being dovish. And I loved an online explanation that I saw, which is dovish. And dovish means we're going to be nice. Like if you think, hey, we're going to be nice, we're going to do that, means at the very least, we're not raising rates, right? If we're hawkish, it means we're fighting, and we're fighting something. And the way the only thing the Fed can do to fight is to raise rates. That's all they can do.
Right.
So a hawkish Fed will raise rates. A dovish Fed will leave them. And there really isn't much room for them to go lower, Adam, in this case. So that means that the promise that they made the last few meetings, which is that we're not going to change things for 3 years, they're going to continue on that promise.
Yep.
Even though, do you really think the Fed's not going to make a move for 3 years?
I have a hard time believing that's the case, but I think over the next 12 to 18 months, we'll see what happens when, you know, the roosters come home, and that being like, how many foreclosures will there be? I think that's a big issue right now. Part of the reason that the Fed keeps rates low is it prompts investment. It prompts the housing market to continue to boom and move forward. And when I was in the mortgage business, I heard a statistic that said every time a home is sold, it pumps $40,000 into the local economy.
Wow.
So if you imagine that interest rates go from, I mean, right now, literally you could go get a 30-year fixed mortgage for 2.75, 2.5 if you paid down some points. That is ridiculously cheap mortgage rates, ridiculously cheap. And so if that goes up to 3.5, what it does is it changes your buying power by, I believe it's 10%. So at 2.5, if you can afford a $300,000 home, at 3.5, you can only afford a $270,000 home.
Yeah.
And that's the big deal, is as we watch the housing market heat up and home prices and values go up and up and up, we actually should be fond of having a dovish person in the Fed, because it will likely mean that rates will stay low and we'll still have people continually, you know, buying and renovating and upgrading.
But this is, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking, Adam, to some degree, this is bad news, because you can get really cheap money, and instead of being able to pay my mortgage earlier, which is what we should all probably do, right? Pay off our debts more quickly. Instead, we go, well, we don't even really say it. Our real estate friend tells us, this means you can afford $25,000 more house. Let me show you, you know, they're already good at if you tell them that you can afford between X and Y, they're going to show you Y plus whatever and go, well, it's just a little bit more. Now they're more encouraged. They're encouraging you to fall in love with a property that you probably really can't afford.
Yeah, it does. I think low interest rates, while on the surface are like, oh, this is awesome. The counter effect of it is that people go out and spend way more than they probably should. And that's not just on their home, Joe, that's on credit cards and HELOCs and everything else. Right. So I think that what is overlooked quite often, and this is something that was in the headlines, and I'm sure another one that people read and went, whatever, was the whole idea that Janet Yellen has been tapped as Treasury
Secretary. Yeah.
And she is very dovish. So the thought is that when the Treasury Secretary and the Federal Reserve Chairman are both dovish, that they will have this unique relationship and working together that will keep sort of the wheels greased on our economy, so to speak. And when I say wheels greased, what I mean is that we will continue to perpetuate and create more debt.
Right.
The debt is what increases our gross domestic product.
Yeah, because really that is what low interest rates do. They encourage people to take on more debt and to keep spending, right? I mean, if we were a saver economy, people would be clamoring for higher interest rates because everybody wants those CD rates higher.
Yep.
Instead of what we have now. Everybody gets excited when, hey, I can just go borrow more cash.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. Before we get too far away from this, I do want to clarify one thing that we've been talking about is that even though mortgage rates go up maybe the same day as if the Fed makes a move up or goes down the same day, that actually is a two-step process. The Fed actually only controls very short-term interest rates of banks borrowing money back and forth. So the ones that are directly, and I mean directly affected, are car loans and unsecured credit lines. Those are the two that are directly going to be affected. But then what happens is, to Adam's point, is that and to get really nerdy, then, T-bills get sold at auction and T-bill rates change because of what the Fed did. And so then that brings mortgage rates along with them. And often you'll see banks already know that's going to happen, so they'll lock it in. So I only said that, Adam, because I was going to get a 5-paragraph essay from an Uber nerd telling me about how we missed a step.
That's true.
I just wanted to let the Uber nerds know that I'm there with you guys. We know.
Some people saw the headline when you put it up on the live chat too, and they're like, "This is so sexy. I love this topic."
Yeah, that's right.
I can't wait to talk about this. I think the implication or the implied message too, when we talk about why will the market the headline, I believe, was the market will not take the news kindly today. Wasn't that how it started?
Yeah. Do you get that?
Well, I think the implied message in it is that if they're talking about being dovish, which means we're going to push rates low, that there is some internal concern about high unemployment and about weak growth. So while, we're again topping the charts in the market and home values are up and savings numbers are up and all of that, I think there is some consideration being made for 2021 and there being weak growth in 2021. And so that's what I think might be the markets are reacting to, is the implied message of, oh, we're dovish, which means that we're also going to assume there's some rising unemployment numbers and weak growth ahead.
Which as you're speaking, I'm thinking about one of Michael Lewis's first books and him talking about how when he was at Solomon Brothers, they taught him to not look at the first domino, but to look at the second domino. And this whole thing that you're talking about is completely second domino thinking. Yeah. Like everybody's racing to the conclusion, right? Of we have a problem with employment and is this going to help?
That's exactly right. Yep. This is probably like the third or the fourth domino, Joe, but I read an article a couple of days ago that Mass Mutual, the large insurance company, had done a significant investment in Bitcoin. And significant being hundreds of millions of dollars. And so, I question that a little bit too, because you take a case like Bitcoin and a company like Mass investing in Bitcoin, that has very little to do at the surface level with what the Fed does. Because now we're talking about a completely different
whole different mechanism.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is an insurer, them doing that is going to give them some leverage the other way. It's almost like buying options, or having an insurer thinking about insurance against future Fed moves. But that's really wild. Yeah. I found that whole, now we're going to go down we won't go down this rabbit hole, but just the whole time the companies were telling you,
my apologies.
You thought I needed some theme music to go along with my
Bluetooth on my phone.
Here goes Joe. Let's play some theme music while he talks. I think that, the whole time that people, consumers were talking about solar, and about how solar doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And you saw big companies talking about solar not making sense. Those same big companies were out there installing as much solar as they possibly could on their own, right?
Right.
So instead of listening to what the PR department's saying, look at what they're actually doing. Same
No
thing
doubt.
we saw on Wall Street. While Wall Street people were out loud laughing about Bitcoin,
Yeah.
you look at what JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and the rest of them have done around cryptocurrency, and their actions say something totally different
Right.
than what they tell the average person.
And if not Bitcoin, it could be something else, right? It could be gold, it could be silver. I mean, a great case in point, there's a bank that I do some work with on the financial education front. And the CEO of the bank, I was talking to him one day about silver and how they invest, what do they use for a hedge? And he said, well, you don't realize how fragile the market is until a small little, multi-$100 million asset bank in South Iowa can shift the silver market. I mean by that, he said, I called up my silver dealer and said, we'd like to take $12 million worth of silver on delivery. And I said, well, first of all, why would you do it? He said, it's just a hedge. We think we can buy it low and we'll sell it back. And it's a guarantee, right? It's like it's like being on the gold standard. We're just buying silver instead.
Yeah.
And the broker said, we will send it to you, but we have to send it over the next 6 to 8 months. We'll lock in the price, but we need to send it over time. And he said, why is that?
You move the market too much?
They said we would run out of silver. It would change the price structure accordingly, and we just can't supply it.
What?
So just interesting, again, because you wouldn't go into that bank and they'd be like, oh, got a great investment for you. Here's 100 bars of silver. They wouldn't do that.
This is why I like talking to Adam Carroll, by the way. We start off talking about the Fed. Now we're talking about silver. We've covered solar. What else is on people's bingo card? We got to make sure somebody wins this thing. In just a moment, Adam and I are going to have our takeaways from today's show. But first, want to talk a little bit about another hedge that people use and something that historically has beaten the heck out of inflation. This is also, by the way, Adam, an asset class that I used to tell people was a waste of time that I really like now, and that's art. Art's one of the oldest and largest asset classes in the world. Deloitte, by the way, estimates that there's $1.7 trillion in total wealth held in art. But historically, it was reserved for the ultra rich, and that actually is why I didn't like it, because working with middle America families, I thought you can't tie all your money up in one painting, right? And then the storage issues, knowing exactly what to buy, who not to buy. But if you get some pros in your corner, what you've seen over long periods of time is some interesting stuff that, frankly, is compelling. Blue chip arts outperformed the S&P 500 by about 180% between 2000 and 2018. That, by the way, does not mean it's going to continue, but that does mean what we're looking for, which is another asset class that beats inflation and isn't correlated with the stock market. When you look at art, you can do it in a way where you're avoiding speculation. And if you use a company like our sponsor, Masterworks, what you'll find is their founders are serial entrepreneurs who founded over a dozen companies, and their CEO has an internationally recognized top 100 personal art collection. In fact, it's funny. I was interviewing him a couple of weeks ago, Adam, and he's talking about, who is he talking about? It wasn't Picasso. Oh, and I'm not going to get it. But anyway, we're chatting and he goes, yeah, I have one down in my kitchen. I'm like, oh, he's got one of these down in his kitchen.
Are we talking like Renoir or Manet or Monet?
Yeah. No, we're talking about a big name. And I wish that I had it. He also has a Banksy in his foyer, apparently. So these people know art, and the good news is their experts can work with you to help you build a custom portfolio to meet your needs. The way that happens, by the way, and the reason I like it now is because instead of having to buy a whole piece of art, which is a ton of money, they break it up because of the way the law works now. They can now break these up. They can turn a painting into a security, and you own just a little piece of that painting along with a bunch of other people. And so instead of owning one, you can own several, so you can diversify. Check it out. It's at Masterworks masterworks.io. Sign up today with promo code SB. You'll skip the 25,000 person wait list to get first dibs. Again, that's masterworks.io. Use promo code SB to get by the wait list. Hurry, offer expires soon. See important information at masterworks.io/disclaimer. All right, Adam.
I'm intrigued.
It is super interesting. Well, and I'll tell you this too. I love art. I love going to art museums. And it frustrates the hell out of me that I can't think of this particular artist right now.
Yeah.
But I really like it. And the chance to invest in something that you actually are going to follow and that you like, and inherently you don't day trade art, right?
Right.
You buy it and you hold it for long periods of time. It's compelling. What's our takeaway here? Getting back to the Fed, Adam.
Yeah. I think the takeaway, certainly for me, is that this may not interest you whatsoever, right? I mean, I think that the talk of the Fed, and if you're on CNBC, you're listening to Squawk Box, they're probably talking about Fed policy on a regular basis, and it may just go right over your head. I think if you can take a couple minutes and dig into and learn a little bit about it, it will help you understand kind of the macro of what's going on in our society. And the whole idea behind interest rates for me has been very interesting, because one of the single greatest expenses we have in life is the interest expense on debt. That is one of people's greatest expenses in life. So if we can figure out how to manage and understand interest and how interest works both for us and against us, we have a better chance of mitigating how much expense we pay in our lifetime on the interest expense on debt. So for me, that's why I'm interested in it, and why I think other people should be.
I think that's a great takeaway itself, is to just after you listen to this episode, go and figure out how much annually you're just paying on the interest on your debt. And just getting past your home will give you a big pit in your stomach. Like, people think, okay, I pay $1,000 a month toward my debt, or $500 a month, or $2,000, whatever your number is. You think that, yep. And then when you figure out how much of that money is just debt service, right? Is not helping you get ahead. It's just going in somebody else's pocket. Yep. It makes you realize then that you want to be somebody who loans out money, not somebody who owes money.
This is a really interesting mindset switch too for me, Joe. I went from a point of, having a mortgage, carrying car loans, credit card debt when I was in my 20s, to being completely debt free, and more of the interest that I was paying on debt that was being used to generate income. So it was more on like investments that I was making as opposed to things that I had bought. Yeah. And I think that's the flip-flop that most people need to get to, is when you look at how much interest expense do I have every year on things that I've bought versus things that I've invested in that are making me money.
That are paying you the interest.
That's right. Yeah. And when you cross over that, like even to borrow some money out of equity in your home to put into an investment, knowing that you're going to make money on it, I think that's the leap that people need to get to in order to create real wealth.
I had a client that was really having trouble back when I was a financial planner, getting basic investing. And we took, we built their emergency fund first. We got their budget in order, and I did not want to help them invest until they understood a little bit about what they were doing. We took $2,000, and just to prove the point, we put it in a high yield bond fund. Now you're going to have CFPs all over the place going, "You did what? Why the hell would you do that?" These junk bond funds. But what it showed, and this was really cool for my client, they saw every month, then we pointed every month this number that was going back into their account. We were reinvesting, and they got, for the first time in their life, in their mid 50s, they got really excited about investing, because the light bulb came on that this money's getting added to my account every single, and even when the price went down, then I remember my client explaining to me, because those prices in high yield bonds can be very volatile. He goes, the price went down, but guess what? I still got another dividend. I still got that money coming in. I love this. This is great. Yes, it is, man. Yes, it is. Speaking of this is great, I heard that you have a great podcast. I'm a ninja.
You are. That was an amazing segue. I do. I have an amazing podcast, the Build a Bigger Life show. I am all about helping people build a bigger life, not a bigger lifestyle. And so I interview people who are interesting, doing things that they love to do, not what they have to do. Many of them are minimalists, though that is not something I especially espouse to, as you can tell from the bookshelf behind me. But I love talking to people who have decided that they're going to live out their core values, and they're going to do it in sometimes strange ways. So they're all really interesting people.
I was listening to the latest episode this morning. You always have such a good time, and you're right. It's inspiring people, and often I find people are inspiring, especially when I listen to your show, that I don't think you're really worried about the fact that they're minimalists. It's that they're spending good money on things that they appreciate, and they've cut everything else, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Because you only have so much cash. And
True.
yeah. And I think that's fantastic. It's a Build a Bigger Life podcast. Good news for you guys. Adam's back with us tomorrow, assuming we can keep him here. I'll be here tomorrow too, assuming these paint fumes don't kill me. I'm Joe. He's Adam. We'll see you next time back here at Money with Friends.
See you.
I just,
getting whiffs of it right now.
The smell of this polyurethane just hit. Yeah. So they're doing this sealant on these things. Dorothea's here. Hey, Dorothea. And Peter, that was very funny. And we were running long, so I didn't get to say those on the show, but those were great. It is super. Did you see what Peter said? Hold on. I got to open a window so I don't die.
I'm just waiting for your eyes to roll back in the back of your head and like fall backwards just in the middle of the interview. I did see that comment, Peter. I thought that was quite funny, actually, in the moment. I could have jumped in on it. Take interest in the Fed meeting.
I told the guy out there, he came by and asked if it was okay to have the fans. And I'm like, yeah, if I have more, I'd give them to you. And I said, and I just jokingly said, I'm like, wow, I was kind of hoping to get high today. And he goes, not this kind of high, brother. Like very seriously. And now I can tell what he means, because it is not good. Yeah, but Peter, think about what that would do for ratings if I died right here on the channel.
People would show up for the live show a whole lot more, I'll tell you that, if there was one.
Yeah, wow, that took finance to a whole different level. Bobby's show tomorrow is on estate planning.
What great timing.
All right. Let me get this thing ready, and we're going to take off. All right. Here we go, guys. Episode number 2. This is for Friday. Well, have you ever seen those inane charts? Let me start this over for the video. Sorry, guys. I still got Peter's comment up there. Let's do this to start the video. There we go. Have you ever seen those inane charts about how much money you should save by a certain age? You know, the ones that show that by the time you're 30, you should have this amount. By 40, it should be a lot more. And by 50, it should be this huge sum of money. And all that does is either make somebody feel incredibly smug, maybe without reason, or have heart palpitations if they're way behind. Well, let's talk student loan debt. Some new numbers out about how much people owe in student loan debt at 30, 40, 50. But these are real numbers, and man, some of these are super ugly. We're talking to the creator of the student loan documentary, Broke, Busted, and Disgusted, Adam Carroll, on today's Money with Friends podcast. Welcome back to the Money with Friends podcast, coming to you live from my mom's half-finished basement in Texarkana, Texas, where we make the Stacking Benjamin show. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy.
My name is Adam Carroll, as Joe mentioned, the founder, creator of the Broke, Busted, and Disgusted documentary, originally aired on CNBC. We're talking student debt today, Joe. I'm excited.
This is the podcast where we're going to hopefully help people keep some money in their pocket. Not only will we start off by reading a piece like some podcasts, but we'll dive into how it affects your wallet and what you can do to invest, save, or pay down debt, in this case, student loan debt, more effectively, and usually in less than 20 minutes. We had so much fun yesterday. We went a little over that. Let's see how today ends up, although I'm not really worried about the time. You know what I was told when I first became a podcaster? A guy who's in the Podcasting Hall of Fame. You may know him, Adam. His name's Dave Jackson.
I do know Dave Jackson.
Dave Jackson, fantastic podcaster, teaches people how to podcast, said, Joe, there's no such thing as too long. There's only too boring. And so yesterday, I think we had a ton of fun. So I'm glad you didn't run away, that you're back here.
We always have fun.
Of course, you know what? We lure you back by talking student loan debt. And that's like chocolate to Mr. Carroll. He's like, oh yeah, I can talk student loan debt. Cause how did that, making that documentary, by the way, to get into this topic, how did that change your life? Just doing that?
Well, it started because I was touring college campuses. I'd been on 750 different college campuses all across the country. And I was hearing stories from students telling me how much their average debt load was. Many of them, case in point, had no idea. They didn't know. I mean, I would ask them, how much will you have when you graduate? They're like, no idea. So that in itself was a challenge for me. And then when people started telling me 60, 80, 100, 120, I mean, I met a young guy who had $120,000 for a bachelor's degree at a private school in the Northeast, in the Northeast part of the country. And I was like, that should be illegal to do, to give you that much debt as an 18 to 23-year-old to take out. And I wanted to put together stories, hero stories and horror stories, and talk to a friend of mine about it. And he said, that would make a killer documentary. And I said, you're right, but I don't know the first thing about making a documentary. And he goes, yeah, me neither. Let's do it. So we did a crowdfunding campaign. We raised $67,000 in 45 days.
Which seemed like more than enough.
Way more than enough.
Yes.
And then you start paying for music royalties. You're like, oh, shoot, this is not enough. Matter of fact, the total sidebar. But when I watch a movie today and they play like, some Peter Cetera song or some song from the 90s or early 2000s, I'm like, do you know how much money they paid to have that music in this movie?
This must be a big budget movie to Peter Cetera.
Peter Cetera.
Yeah.
He's making some serious coin in retirement.
You've got 22-year-olds looking up Peter Cetera right now.
That's right.
As we talk.
So what did it change? It changed a lot for me because I got to tell the story of a number of people who, were weighted under the mountain of debt that they had. And the movie was aired on CNBC. So to watch it be premiered after Shark Tank, that was pretty surreal. And now, we're getting ready to launch it on YouTube. So it's open and available for all. And that'll happen here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, so that's coming up now.
Yep.
That's cool. Maybe as hooray 2020's over special celebration.
Yeah, it's my gift to the world for 2021, 2020 being gone and 2021 being here. Here's my film.
Just for surviving it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to jump into student loans right now. Let's see which one of our friends is going to help us kick this thing off. All right. Before we get to the piece, by the way, we hang out with friends live making the show. If you want to hang out with us, it's youtube.com/money with friends. Matt's hanging out with us and said, you're the Willy Wonka of student loan debt.
I'm not sure what that means, but I like it. That means the kids are Oompa Loompas. I'll have to tell them.
Well, I was going to say, though, that also assumes that you're handing out student loan debt, right?
That is true.
Yes.
That is totally true.
Probably close, but not quite. Today's piece comes to us like yesterday's did from CNBC. This is Megan DiMatteo who wrote this. Here's the average student loan debt by age. And let's just cut right to the chase. Collectively, she writes, U.S. student loan borrowers owe a total of $1.7 trillion with a T in student debt, according to the Federal Reserve data. Of all borrowers, consumers in their mid-30s had the highest balances in 2019, with payments paused for most of 2020. That's probably still true. Over half Americans go into debt to pay for college. Average tuition prices starting around $22,000. Of course, that climbs even higher for private schools and graduate degrees. But if we take a look at this by age, 24 and younger, $115 billion outstanding, 25 to 34, $500 billion, $601 billion for 35 to 49. That's the biggest group. But 50 to 61, Adam, still has $262 billion, and 62 and older. And even though this isn't the biggest number, there still is a B at the end of this, $86 billion in student loan debt for people over 62.
Crazy. It's crazy. I met a number of people in my tour with BBD, with Broke, Busted, and Disgusted, the documentary. One woman in particular, she stood up in the back of a screening and she said, "I'm in default, I'm in denial, and I'll never pay these." And I said, "Help me understand what you mean." And she said, "I stopped making my student loan payments years ago. They can come after me all they want. I'm never going to pay them." It's ruined her credit score.
Just going to default on purpose, purposeful default.
Purposefully defaulted. She was in her 60s. She said, my two kids are kind of in the same boat. I told them to borrow as much as they could. And I mean, so some of this is a perpetuation, and some of it we have to stop in the high school, in my opinion. You know, we got to have educators, and thankfully there are a lot of places out there that are doing this well. Next Gen Personal Finance, ngpf.com is a great, or .org, is a great site. They're offering financial literacy tools to high school educators, and the documentary being one of them. But they're trying to get educators to talk to students about not getting into so much debt at such an early age.
I wonder, it's funny. We've been joking between recordings of the show live that mom has a bunch of people working on the house today, and I'm personally being fumigated while we record this. But you look at the trades now and how difficult it is to get people out, and you look at the escalating cost of people in building trades, as an example, in construction, yep, in plumbing, in electrical work. Like a lot of these jobs. I mean, I wonder when the rubber band kind of starts to go the other way, Adam, when there's somebody in high school who wakes up and goes, "I could be a bajillionaire doing this thing that other people could be doing if there wasn't so much pressure to look the other way."
There was an interesting case in point, an interesting conversation I had with the Iowa Sheet Metal Workers Union, who called me in the middle of the crowdfunding campaign and said, "We'd like to be an associate producer on the film." And I was kind of like, okay, why? What's the angle? And they said, just that we go into high schools every day trying to talk about our program, and we'll get met with resistance at the main administrative office. And they'll say, "Well, we'll find all of our kids who aren't college material and send them your way." And he said, "We don't want derelicts. We don't want juvenile delinquents. We want people who don't necessarily see themselves in a traditional 4-year school or 2-year school environment, but instead want to get hands-on learning." And I said, "Tell me."
We still want the smartest people we can get.
Totally. I mean, it's math, it's science. They have to do
running a business.
Running a business. He said, here's the other advantage is that they'll come out making great money as an apprentice. And by the time they're a journeyman, they're making fantastic money. And 3 or 4 years later, in many cases, the owner of the company is aging out and needing someone to buy the business. So there are cases even in our area here where 28 to 32-year-olds are buying 2-decade, 3-decade-old plumbing and heating businesses, and or plumbing businesses and HVAC type businesses, and they're buying them from the owners that just aged out. They didn't have anybody on their bench to buy it until they brought an apprentice.
Wow. So, and imagine too, the opportunity there. I mean, I would think this is horrible, but I would think there's a lot of people out there who've run a family business for a long time, don't have anybody to sell it to, and once again, this is horrible, but they don't even know how to price their business. So you could get a business that based on cash flow and existing customers takes care of itself.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't mean to prey on people, but I do think that if I'm selling a business, I should educate myself just like I should if I'm going out to buy a business. This brings something up that I just thought of while I was listening to you, Adam, which is, so my son went to a Catholic all-boys school in 8th grade, and I remember not only was it one of the first questions that parents asked, but it was also the thing that they emphasized was the number of kids who graduated from this private school who went to college, right? Like the college rate. So okay, for a school, and my son had some learning issues, so there was a perfect place for him. But the next year when we moved to Texarkana and went to public school, I didn't expect to get the same thing. But I did. It was when we were in the auditorium, the first question parents were asking was how many kids from this public school, go to college. And then the administration was very proud of the fact that, hey, this is our college rate. It's our college rate. And so I'm thinking even in the public schools today, we're looking at this as a one-track mind.
Sure. It's beginning to shift a little bit, but my sister is a first grade teacher in California, and her partner is an administrator in the system. And when I asked them both, what is the purpose of the school system? They go, we're preparing these kids for college. So
like a knee-jerk reaction.
That's it. So an interesting statistic that we should be calculating is, okay, how many kids go to college? How many kids go to college for free? And what's the average debt load of students that graduate from this high school and go on to college 4 years out or 6 years out? And I'm not saying that the debt metric is the one that we have to stick with, or that it determines if this is successful or not. However, the number of young people that are carrying somewhat seemingly insurmountable amounts of debt, I think, is illustrated by the number of 60-year-olds that are still carrying debt in the CNBC article. Because what I'm finding is that, a student will say, well, I'm going to get on this graduated repayment plan or this income contingent plan, but they never really understand that, yes, you have a $180 payment on your $50,000 in student loans, but it means that the principal amount is growing year over year over year. So every time you send a $180 payment,
it's still growing.
Light it on fire, because it's not doing anything technically, and it's growing on the other side, which means you're going to pay even more down the road. To me, that's the biggest criminality in all this, is that young people don't have a true sense of what $50,000 borrowed actually is. Like, what is the context of $550 a month every month for 10 years to an 18-year-old who's just like, I got to go to college. I got to.
We prefer not to talk politics on this show, but obviously this has become a political hot button, Adam. So I think we have to go there for at least a second. There are obviously some things on the table with the new administration about canceling some of the debt. Right. Do you think canceling student loan debt's the answer?
Listen, I think the whole idea of let's cancel all student loan debt is farcical. Like there is no way. That is an imaginary thing that people put out as like, oh, wouldn't this be awesome? Our government makes far too much money on student loan interest to ever consider canceling student loan debt.
I've never heard it put that way. You're saying it brings home the bacon, so we can't do it?
It is tens of billions of dollars in interest that the loans that are driven out of the Department of Education, what those make the federal government, it is far too lucrative. So even Joe Biden's plan of let's forgive $10,000, for some people that may be meaningful, but for most of them, even if you had $50,000 in student loans and you forgive 10 grand, your graduated repayment plan still doesn't touch the interest that amount is accumulating. So, more or less, it's kind of like, oh, sure. It's like your granddad giving you $10 and you being really excited about it, but it doesn't really do anything. So I think there are more optics in those promises, if you will, those initiatives, than there is actual teeth. I don't think that will ever happen.
I also get worried. I just get worried from take away the external stuff from an internal place. I get worried that, and I had this discussion last week with a friend of mine, talking about how whenever I read the news and I'm dealing with external factors and all of these, people that have listened to the show for a long time know how much I like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But so I'm going to use a term from that pot 3 stuff, right? Stuff I can't control and I can't influence, which largely would be the government doing something about this. Whenever I think about pot 3 stuff, I find myself over the course of an hour or 2 hours, I get really depressed. I mean, I seriously get really depressed. And I think that it's feeding me, and it really doesn't. The second I turn my brain back to stuff that I can control and stuff that I can influence, I'm back in my happy place. I'm immediately back. And I feel like when somebody, and we've had people write to us at Stacking Benjamin saying, hey, should I stop paying my student loans because the government's going to cancel this debt? I'm like, oh, hell no.
Right.
No, you can't do it. So if that's not the answer, what is the answer?
Well, I think that a couple things here that I want to bring up, really important.
I'm just laughing because I'm thinking, when I ask you what's the answer to this whole student loan problem, it's been around forever. There's no pressure there, Adam. And Adam's like, okay, hold my beer.
Let me talk to the money tree and see what it says here. Hang on a second. Here's two things I want to bring up. Number one, don't avoid them. Don't avoid them. It's the worst possible thing you can do. So anyone who says, I'm on forbearance, I'm on deferment, I'm never going to pay it. This woman that I met who said I'm in default and denial, it is the worst weed you could ever have in your yard. You know what I mean? This is like creeping Charlie popping up and you're like, nah, whatever. And within a year, it's taken over the entire yard. That's how student loan debt, when we don't pay it, that's what'll happen. It'll grow in volumes because of fees and penalties and interest and all of that. So we definitely need to go after that first and foremost. Secondly, I think that if you said, I am going to go at my student loan debt with definiteness of purpose, like I am going to set a date, I'm going to have it paid off by this date, and I'm going to figure out how to get it knocked out. Now, that may be different if you have $300,000, but by and large, there are ways to do it still. So for the people who are like, I just don't know what to do, what is the hobby that you could take on that you could turn $50 into $100 every weekend? And specifically, I'm thinking go garage sailing, go shopping on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist and flip some of these things and make a little extra money that's always going to your student loans. If you have to bar back or whatever to make extra payments, make extra payments. But I maintain that this CNBC article, what it illustrates is that as a society, we've just decided we're okay with having student loan payments for a really long time. And I maintain that if it took you 4 years to acquire it, it shouldn't take you 20 to retire it. And right now, the average length of time that it takes for people to pay these off is between 18 and a half and 21 years, which to me is just asinine. Because for every $1 you borrow, you pay back $2.
In just a moment, Adam and I are going to have our takeaways from today's discussion on student loan debt. But first, if you follow my other show, Stacking Benjamins, you might remember MetPro founder Angelo Poli comes on from time to time as a contributor. This guy is amazing. I don't know, Adam, if you've heard Angelo Poli talk before. He's this guy he's a health and wellness expert who works with CEOs, people that are moving quickly, and basically with the premise of fad diets don't work, right? Even he will go on and on about intermittent fasting sounds cool and it's the hot thing right now, but so is the grapefruit diet that my mom did back in the 70s, you know? Yeah. So there's always a thing that supposedly works, but the key long-term is realizing how your body's fueled and how it works. So they talk about the short, people talk about, and I had a mentor tell me this, there's the short-term and obvious approach, which would be a fad diet. And then there's the long-term and not so obvious, which is maybe I get a little educated on how this works. And so his company MetPro, today's sponsor, is a company that I've been working with. And I feel kind of honored that they decided they'd sponsor our show because I have enjoyed kind of as a strong term. Let me define enjoyed. So I weighed 205 pounds when I started with MetPro back in early November of 2019. During the holiday season, Angelo told me that the average person gains 7 to 12 pounds during the holiday season. I got down to 195 just as we rolled into Thanksgiving, and I stayed at 195 all the way through that. I went down to 192 and then sometimes 189, but usually the battle's been fought around 192. Then we sold our house and did this whole nomadic journey that people that know a little bit about me know. And so I was in different places, didn't have the opportunity to plan my meals like I should, but I've stayed at 192 all the way through it. And I'll credit my MetPro coach, Jesse, who is, so when I say enjoyed, Jesse's a pain in the ass, Adam. Jesse's also the reason I feel good every day. Yeah. Jesse's the reason why I like working out, because when Jesse texts me or Jesse tells me, hey, so have you been eating right? Well, I have a donut in my hand. And I'll give you one other example here. I was at a conference I was at a conference and I told Jessie, I'm going to be at this conference for 4 days, basically telling her I'm going off the wagon, right? For 4 days, I'm going to go. And she goes, okay, well, there is a midway. You could let's do this. If you're going to go out with friends at night, go ahead and have a couple beers, have some fun, but maybe you still eat healthy during that time. And so you're not going completely overboard, or at lunch. So we set up this plan. So 2 days into this 4-day conference, I'm already off the wagon, right? I am already, by the way, this is early February. This is just before COVID hits.
Yeah. You're like, baked potato skins are a vegestal.
Yeah, that's right. I can just have a carb. This is a good carb. And I know it's good because it tastes good. Yeah. Jessie texts me halfway through, and this is her wording, which, by the way, is the wording of a great coach. Are you happy with the choices you're making? I'm like, no, you should just yell at me. Don't ask me if I'm happy. Are you happy? Of course I'm not happy. I'm screwing this whole thing up, Jessie. Yeah, she's great. But anyway, it has been great. My productivity has been up. I feel better. And frankly, you don't go anywhere if you're not taking control of your life. And the way that they do that, the team at MetPro, is by helping people hack their metabolism, is what they say. I call it understanding how your body works when you feed it different fuels. And over the course of a year, I didn't get educated right away. It took me a while. And now I see, man, if I put this in, I know what the reaction's going to be, a few hours. And I know before I step on the scale the next day, what the scale's going to tell me. So recently I use the concierge service. That's a little more expensive one. For some people, they might go, you know what? I can't afford to do that. MetPro recently launched a new tool that allows everybody to experience the same science and tailored strategy that I use with Jessie. It isn't a food logging tool. It's not a workout app. The MetPro app allows you to start tracking, analyzing, and learning what your metabolism responds to best. So metpro.co to get there. And I'm looking for the URL. This is fantastic radio. But what's funny is that when they sent this to us, it got clipped at the part way mark, and everybody's going, okay, Joe, I'm in. How do I get it? I don't know how you get it. I'm just going to tell you it's great. And that's about all we're going to do. Where the heck? Come on. It's metpro.co. And well, Adam, I'm going to find it, but let's keep the ball rolling. Here it is. Ta-da. Everybody gets up to 1 month free when they sign up. There it is. Head to metpro.co/MWF to take advantage of the opportunity. Remember, it's .co, not .com. metpro.co/MWF. And then Angelo is going to write me going, Joe, need to do a better job of that, pal.
Hey, have the URL up in front of you.
Yes. Well, it is cool that you talked about us for 5 minutes, Joe. That is great. But
I would concur that having a coach to be able to hold you accountable is super important in that. I mean, I can imagine having Jessie there saying, did you do this? How do you feel about that? That's got to be amazing.
Well, I just love coaches in every aspect of my life. Like, I just think having some outside person who's really smart show me where my blind spots are always is great. I learned that from my clients when I was a financial planner, Adam, that just surrounding myself with smart people like you, and I'm the dumbest person in the room, always pays dividends. Always pays dividends. So because you're the smartest guy in the room, tell us what our takeaway is here, man. So I can pretend like I have one that just says me too when you finish.
Yeah. My takeaway on this article, number one, I'm a little concerned. I'm concerned for those that are above 40 and still have student loan debt, because what that means is you've carried it for 18 years now. And I think there was a pretty good chunk of folks in that category that were taking on Parent Plus loans for their children. So I would say to those folks, if you are beyond 10 years out of college and you still have student loan debt and you do not have children yet, make it a point to get them knocked out. There's no sense in carrying it. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is, just get rid of them. Kick Sally Mae out of the house once and for all. Let's be done. Okay. If you are a parent and you are thinking about taking on student loan debt for your children, make perfectly clear the situation with your kids, right? Make perfectly clear what that situation is. No, they need to know how much you've signed on the line for. They need to know what they're on the hook for. They need to know what those payments look like. Because I've talked to far too many parents who put their name on a Parent Plus loan, intending their children to make the payments. And their payments, their kids were like, well, it's not my deal. That's yours. You took out that loan. And then they're stuck in their 50s and 60s.
Or the parent feels guilty later because the kid is in a starting job, doesn't have a lot of money, and says, you know what, I'll just make this payment for a little while. Next thing you know, they own it.
Exactly. So just be aware, have this in the forefront. This is a big, big challenge. There's a reason it's called a student loan debt crisis. So keep the crisis out of your house. And Peter made a great comment here. Joe,
Peter says, Adam, thanks for joining. He says, we're indebted to you, sir. Peter's on fire. Peter's carrying the show right now. I can't read the MetPro ad, but Peter can bring it home for me. It's all about the big finish, Peter. Nice job. My takeaway, Adam, is that whenever I see something that's as bad as the student loan crisis is, I think, what's the opportunity here? And we did a couple stories the last few weeks where employers are really searching for ways to help out their employees. Employers are looking for ways to help out their employees and to hold on to employees. I mean, if you've got somebody who helped you this last year, they probably are people that went beyond the call of duty, did some great stuff. I mean, everybody's fighting all these 2020 demons right now. Getting on board with one of these companies that will allow you to defer your matching program to pay student loans instead of going to retirement, maybe an idea, or helping people pay their student loans, giving people when they come work for you some sort of a vesting schedule that you'll help them pay off their student loans over time. This is a great, frankly, very cheap way when you look at the cost of losing somebody and hiring a new one. This is a great way to hold on to talent. So many studies show that companies, when they lose a good employee, hiring somebody, training them, bringing them up to speed, cost you so much time and so much money. It's paying part of their student loans is a much cheaper way to do it. And also on the other side, I think of the opportunity. If I took student loans, I remember a young guest we had on our show a few years ago that every time she made a student loan payment, she made the student loan payment with gratitude based on something that she learned that was paying for. And she it helped her make bigger and bigger payments, which she knew she needed to, Adam. But she also said, you know what, this was for my freshman English class that made it so I could do XYZ thing and send it in. So every time in the memo line, she always had this little thing that she learned. And at the end, her last payment, it was something like, I learned that I really didn't want that much in student loans, which I think is the big thing. If you can avoid it, find a strategy to do it.
Half of mine would have said Thursday nights at Shag's.
Brain cells still paying interest on that one.
Yeah, man. I mean, seriously, like fishbowl drinks at Joker's. That would have been one of my gratitude lines.
Speaking of coaching, my friend, you help people build a bigger life. How do they find out more about that?
Yeah, if you want to listen to some of the interviews I do on the Build a Bigger Life podcast, I am out wherever you listen to podcasts at buildabiggerlife.com. And the Build a Bigger Life podcasts are out there on iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher and everywhere else. I do work with individuals on occasion, and we're actually launching a group coaching program in 2021. What I have found is that people are really missing connection in the midst of 2020. And what we want to do is bring together a whole group of high achievers, people who are driven, people who want 2021 to be their best year. And it's going to be a multi-month process. But at the end of that time period, we're going to have the option of joining at a retreat, which will be at a really cool location somewhere in the US, likely Sedona. And because I love Sedona. And so pay attention to that. There will be lots of announcements on the podcast about that whole program.
Awesome. And that's Build a Bigger Life. I'm listening to it on Spotify. You can hear it wherever finer podcasts are distributed. Adam, thanks for sharing your wisdom and your time with us again, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Joe, it's always a pleasure. I hope the fumes don't overtake you in the next several minutes.
Not either, but I got to go. All right, we did it. That was 30 minutes. So instead of going shorter, we went longer.
Yeah, how much fun we have together.
If I could have figured out that Met Pro read, it would have been far better. I totally forgot that they sent the top part and the bottom part separately. So I had it all ready to go. I'm all prepped. I get down to the bottom of that and I'm like, there's no call to action.
Now, do those folks pay you to sponsor?
They do. Yes.
And
they do. And something else I should have said too, is because I've had such a long-term relationship with them, they also give me free coaching as well now.
Oh,
I
interesting.
should have said that on the podcast. Yeah. Initially it wasn't free coaching. And later on they're like, you know what? You helped us so much that, but I wouldn't talk about them if Jessie wasn't my favorite pain in the ass ever. Like she is. My wife loves Jessie, and she's been on these calls with us. Cheryl's been on, because we'll be in the car somewhere, back when we were nomads, we'll be in the car and Jessie will call for our weekly call. And Jessie talks like a surfer. Like she's like, Joe, man, how's my favorite client? And she's always like over the top positive. How's my favorite client? I'm like, I'm not your favorite client because I didn't lose any weight this week. Like, stop lying to me, Jessie. She's like, no, you know what? Maintain is good, man. Maintain is good. You're doing great. But I'll tell you what we're going to do next week. And then she'll give me the lowdown for what the strategy is now. Well, and even before she does that, she's like, okay, so what's coming up this weekend? Because I know you, and every time we have a weekend, you manage to gain 3 pounds. So and then it takes us till Wednesday to lose all that. She's
literally kind of walking you through whatever your meal plan is, your plan for the days. How are you going to make sure you consume water, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So what happens is I have an app, which is very similar to the app that people can use that don't do the concierge program, that just do the app, their new program. And I'll show you. But so I'm going to try to not have the glare on that. So I have my meal plan, and it tells you the different things. So if I click on breakfast, it brings up, there's a breakfast I created, and here's some other breakfasts.
Oh, that's cool.
But I can create my own, which I do, because as long as it sticks to the to the certain criteria that they're looking for, like I can eat whatever the hell I want. It just has to stay within these parameters. And basically they really just focus on your metabolism. And right now I'm in the middle of this thing because I'm in gain weight mode right now.
Yep.
But they feed you a bunch of clean carbs, so you gain a little weight, because the goal is in January to drop a bunch. Feed me a bunch of clean carbs, so I gain a little weight, but not a lot. And then in January, cut the crap out of all the carbs, and your weight just goes through the floor. Yeah.
So when you say cut the crap out of the carbs, there's no you would cut down the carb consumption.
Very few carbs. Yeah. Yeah. You get your carbs in terms of like apples. I eat a ton of apples right now. Just a ton of apples. I eat a ton of food. Like they feed you a lot of food. A lot of food. I feel like I'm eating all the time. Yeah. And I don't gain any weight.
It's clean.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I continually eat. I don't fast. And I don't gain weight except when I go off the deep end. And then what's cool is that, and this is horrible, but within 3 days, I lose it all again. I just get my butt back on the program, which is bad because I've learned over the past year that I can do that. Yeah. So when I reach for the wrong food on Saturday, and this is what Jessie and I are working through right now, I'm like, I'll get rid of this by Wednesday. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
It'd be great. But the thing that I have to realize is that I feel like shit all weekend. Right. I don't feel good after I eat that way. And that's what I got to get through my head. It's not that the donut's okay and I'll get rid of it. It's that during the weekend when I'm trying to have fun with my family, I'm dirt because I got this body full of Chex Mix.
You're in a sugar cloud.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Is there an exercise regimen with it as well?
Yes. Yeah. And actually, so, and that's all in the tracking, app. And in fact, let me see if I can pull that up, but they not only have all kinds of workouts, and this is in just the app that people get, even if they don't have a Jessie with them. So, whoops, that's the wrong one. Okay. I don't want to do that. Let me show you guys this because this is actually kind of neat. Come on. Home workouts, body weight resistance, upper body without equipment. So they give you, let's see if I can. They tell you what to do, 2 to 3 rounds of this. But not only this, some of these things I'm like, I don't know what the hell they're doing. You click on this and the little animation shows you the form.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, if that dude can do it, I can do it. So, and by the way, this does not look tough, but around number 60.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Cause at first I'm like, this is the easiest stuff ever. Yeah, not so much. Anyway,
I'm following Heather Robertson on YouTube, which she's got like a free 12-week YouTube series.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. She never smiles. That's the challenge I have with Heather Robertson.
She never smiles.
I'm like, should I be enjoying this? Because you seem not to be. But,
right. Isn't that funny? That's the little things, right?
Yeah.
How much speaker training did you do before you went out doing all your talks?
I went through a number of classes.
Yeah.
I would say that I cut my teeth. I worked for a division of Monster.com, the job search company.
Yeah.
And they sent a group of speakers like me out to high schools all across the country. So I cut my teeth on 14-year-olds who are the most apathetic human beings on the face of the earth. And what I realized was if I could hold their attention, I could probably hold anybody's attention. So I perfected kind of my storytelling and work. And then when I started doing it with groups, it was kind of a natural. But I've really poured myself into watching TED Talks. I watched a ton of Comedy Central, believe it or not, when
they were
comedians.
Agreed.
Because I would glean like, how did they tell that joke and why was it funny? And it was all in the way it was written. And it's typically like set up, punchline, punchline, punchline. And by the third punchline, everybody's rolling. And so I try and deliver lots of my material that way. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I was with American Express and they put me through PR training. And so that was my background. And, I didn't remember why I asked you that, but there was a story there too. And it's gone, but ta-da, this is what we do without that. I forgot that we're still live. Everybody's hanging out with us. We're just chatting.
I'm honored that people still are.
What's that?
I'm honored that people are still hanging out with us.
I know, right? You have a very nice smile, Gertrude says.
Thank you, Gertrude.
It's Gertrude is our room mother in the basement and social media person. By the way, Gertrude, I don't know if you were here the whole time, but I'm being fumigated right now. I may not show up for meetings the rest of the day because I'll be pulled off the ceiling. It is getting strong in here.
You'll like float down the stairs. Right. So high.
Luckily, there are no stairs. That's the good news.
Oh, that is good.
Yes. All right, guys. Have a fantastic day, everybody. We'll see you again here next time. Bola Succumbi and I are recording on Friday afternoon. Thursday morning, Bobby and I are recording for the weekend. So we'll